You created Castles and Crusades with Matt Golden.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, it's twofold. There's a lot of questions. I've been gaming forever, right? And
Yeah.
writing my own rules and stuff like that since forever. Since I think I started, so I started with Dungeons and Dragons in the 1970s.
Mm.
And even by the time AD&D hit in the late 70s, and I picked it up in Steam by like 1980, like I was running with it. Um, I real quickly was picking up other games as well. I was picking up other games as well, just to see how every other role playing thing.
Trying
And then I,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
then I just started making my own rules. I started adjusting Dungeons and Dragons to fit my own needs. And
Yeah.
that thing, once you start bringing in other games and other rule systems, and you're able to see it from different vantage points, you're always trying to pick and pull like this will be more realistic, or this will
Mm.
be, this will engender this type of reaction or something like that, or it'll just fit my game. So I'm just
Yeah.
constantly changing rules. And to the point where at some point you weren't even playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You were playing a combination of like
Yeah.
Rolemaster, Tunnels and Trolls, Dungeons and Dragons, playing whatever it was.
Tunnels and Trolls?
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever played Tunnels and Trolls?
No, I've never even heard of that.
Oh no, it's a little bitty short game. I think it's just a 2D6 game. It's developed in the 80s, I believe. I can't remember exactly when Tunnels and Trolls came out, but it's one of the simplest RPGs ever. And I know it's been redone since then. But I still have somewhere around here the first Tunnels and Trolls ever produced.
Mm.
And I mean, it's just a really simple short pamphlet, as I recall anyway. I know it's around here somewhere, but it was
Sounds
so simple.
awesome.
Yeah, no, and that was one of those breakthrough games for me, because it's like, oh, it doesn't have to be this complex. It can be super, super
Mm.
simple, and you can still get the same amount of fun out of the game, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, but yeah, so what happened is that, like, over the years, you're combining all these game elements and stuff, and I'd always wanted to make my own game, something that represented like how I played, or how I wanted the game to play, or how it played at my table and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So these books, or notebooks full of rules and blah blah blah, but it was never organized into any coherent fashion, so to speak. Not until the late 1990s that I start to, in my off hours after work, I would start organizing into like bring it into some semblance of order or something like that, and
Right.
create a vision. But I had nothing to do with it. It was just for me, right? It was all just for me.
Right.
And then we started roller games, and I was still working at the time, out west and stuff like that.
As
Uh,
an archaeologist?
yeah, yes, I was doing archaeology. I've been doing archaeology. That was my degree in archaeology, and I went on to do archaeology and then teach archaeology later at college, or anthropology really in college. But yeah, that
Sure.
was that was my gig for a very long time. That was a
Wow.
lot of fun.
That
But
sounds incredible.
yeah, it's fun. I mean, anyone who wants to do it, do it. I mean, you're not going to make a lot of money. You're I mean, unless you're like at the top of the field and you're like you get to Harvard or something
Just
like
like
that, you're a professor.
uncovering rare bones and just like selling them on the black market.
I guess you can do that. I'm opposed to that. Ethically opposed to that. However, it happens a lot. I mean, it happens way
I'm
more
sure.
often than you think.
Oh, yeah.
I think the first time I ran into it in America was on the Caddo River in Arkansas. We were doing a survey, and we were on this riverbank, and there were just someone had taken a backhoe and just shredded the riverbank, just ripping it all up. And we were trying to figure out why they were ripping it up. And we found bones and pottery and stuff like that. Well,
Wow.
it was a burial ground in a village nearby. So whoever was coming out there with the backhoe, the Forest Service had asked us to come do it. Whoever was coming out there with the backhoe was just tearing up this village burial mounds and stuff like that, looking for arrowheads. You know,
God. Yeah.
which to me, it always seemed ridiculous to me, because arrowheads aren't really worth anything. I
We
mean, they're,
we'd find them all the time in Michigan. Like,
yeah. I mean, America's been occupied for minimally 15,000 years, more than likely 30 to 40,000 years.
Mm.
And you can even push it beyond that. I do, but and people have been wandering across, the country, making arrows. There's tens of thousands of years. Can you imagine how many arrowheads are just laying around? There's
A
good
million.
trillions.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
like I wonder if in the far-flung future people will be like scanning for bullet casings and
oh yeah, no, yeah, yes, they will. They do already. And
yeah.
technically speaking, I don't know if this law has changed, but technically speaking, anything over 50 years old is considered archaeologically significant, which
Mm.
is sort of ridiculous because I would personally be archaeologically significant at this point. So you just lay down in the pasture and say, an archaeologist needs to come dig me up or whatever. But yeah, no, we've come across, or I did in southern Arkansas and Mississippi, uh, battlegrounds. So especially a Civil War. There was one Civil War battleground, and there was another one that dated to the early 1500s. No, early 1800s.
Mm.
Where a battle, we could tell a battle had occurred because of the way, like, you could still find the shells in the ground and not shell casings uh, that early, but you could find all the debris from weapons, right?
Right.
Like buried around and stuff like that. There's also, what else did we find down there? This was really cool. This was one of the coolest things I found. We're in a pecan grove and we're digging, and I can't remember exactly why we were in this pecan grove digging. Uh, I don't know what the reason behind it was, but we were down there digging anyway.
Yeah.
So we dug down, and I can't remember how deep it was, but it was really, really, really freaking deep. Like probably 4 feet down or something like that.
Sure.
Because I was down in the hole. Maybe it was 3 feet. Uh, but I came across this weird shape in the ground. I was like, wow, this is sort of weird. It's different materials, not the dirt, blah, blah, blah. And then, so I'm slowly, this is one of those painstaking moments in archaeology where you're just very slowly going through it because it's going to fall apart. There's nothing really physical to recover. All you've got is this impression and some debris and a debris field with it, not debris field with it, but whatever. And what it was the decayed head of a halberd in the ground. And I was like, what?
Shit.
But we could never figure out the origin of, because it was so deep,
Sure.
we didn't have anything to work with on that side. There was nothing else really to work with other than a few other artifacts. We
Hmm.
couldn't really place it to a time or whomever had been there at whatever time, something like that.
Yeah.
But another cool thing is that it had to be post conquest because it's a halberd. uh, it's fairly well decayed, so it had to be there for a very, very long time. But what's cool about that is it's just how rapidly soil accumulates in certain areas. It can be really, really rapid.
Yeah, because no one buried it under there.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. There were a lot of cool things down there that we found post conquest.
Is that your favorite thing that you found?
Favorite thing? No, I don't know. There's several really, really cool things. One time I was taking a lunch break and I found was actually on a survey for like 8 people leaving the survey, and I called a lunch break. And I went down to this creek nearby, and we had found nothing. We'd been working for like 3 days and found literally nothing. And this is like southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana. We found nothing for days, nothing interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'm down at this creek, and I'm eating my sandwich, and it's hot out, it's August, and I'm just sitting around in the creek, rubbing my feet, letting them cool off and stuff like that. And I see this point down there, and I'm like, oh, this is sort of interesting. There's a point in the creek. And then I look at it real close, and I'm like, holy shit, this is an old point. I haven't touched it yet. And that's I realized it's a really, really old point. It was it was one of the few Clovis points, or just after the Clovis point. I had to send it off for analysis, and I never got the
What
analysis
is
back.
a Clovis point?
One of the oldest points in America, about 12,000 years old.
And when you say point,
Like it's like an arrowhead.
okay.
Yeah, top of an arrowhead. That was
Wow.
a really, really, really cool find. That was one of the cool. Another interesting site I worked on was it was a burial, and I worked on a lot of burials, but this one was the most interesting because the top layer of the burial, it was a Native American burial ground, and it was just a scatter of bodies and stuff like that. There was just a lot of bodies, just
Wow.
like not laid out really in a particularly organized fashion or something like that. They've just been, we could tell that they were rapidly put there, and over the, I think it was like about 4 months we were digging, and we got all the way down or very deep, uh, deep down to the earlier burials. And the earlier burials were really pre-conquest burials, are really organized, and they're, everyone's arranged well, and they have the material with them and stuff like that. You can really tell, the time was taken on the
Mm.
burials. But post-conquest, right, the number of people being put in the burial ground just started to increase dramatically,
Mm.
rapidly. And at some point, it just like exploded where they were just literally getting the bodies in the ground as quickly as they could. And it's because, more than likely, because of the diseases associated with the conquest period or the
Mm.
contact period, uh, had reached the southern Mississippi region, and it was just wiping out populations, smallpox probably, wiping out populations
Sure.
left and right. So they were just rapidly burying people.
And you were able to infer this by like dating them and
Yeah.
putting dates to them, not dating them.
Yeah.
Like just
I never dated one. Yeah.
but like was it just that, like just the dates, or
You
were
can
there like
tell.
other clues?
Yeah, there's always other clues. One, you have the stratigraphy, and you can tell like older soil. You can tell there's older soil, and then the type of points that you collect with them, the type of materials you collect with them, can always be dated, the pottery and stuff like that.
Mm.
But they did come back with dates. So it was, I think, the earliest portion of that burial was around 1300, maybe 1250, somewhere around in there, I think. And then, now one of the bad things is, see, so like when I was doing archaeology, I was more obsessed with uh, being an archaeologist, a field archaeologist, rather than specializing in one particular thing and following that particular thing to its end.
Yeah.
I did surveys and type 1 and type 2 excavations and stuff like that, occasionally type 3 excavations.
What's the
But
difference?
a survey, you're just walking around looking for stuff, you know, and you literally you just get in a line 30 feet, 30 feet, 30 meters from one another, and you walk through the woods in a straight line. And like in the South and the Midwest and other places with rapid soil accumulation, you have to dig these holes every 30 feet or 30 meters. You dig a hole and you screen it, all the material, and you see what you can find. And then you, like, at the end of your survey season, you collect all the data and you send it off to surveys or archaeological surveys, and they do whatever with it. But
Sure.
those are just walk, and you get to just like walk through the woods all day long
That
for
sounds
years.
awesome.
Oh, it is so fun. And out west, you don't even have to carry a shovel because there's no there's not, where I surveyed at least, there wasn't rapid soil accumulation. It was mostly soil erosion, right? So
Sure.
everything was on the surface. You didn't really need to dig down to know what was going on. So there, you just got a backpack on and you're walking all day out in the desert, you know? So,
Jeez.
oh, man, it is so fun. It is. And that's what I really prefer because I got to
Yeah.
walk all day long,
Yeah.
all day long, and do archaeology at the same time, which can be, intellectually engaging. And then
Yeah.
you're out in the woods away from people. And
What could be better?
oh, yeah, no, no,
That's
no. And the type
awesome.
of people archaeology attracts, especially field archaeologists and survey archaeologists, tend to be some of the funnest people I've ever been around, the most relaxed, fun people I've ever been around.
Sure.
Yeah, there has to be something in your personality that allows you to spend 8 to 10 hours a day outside in the woods, living in hotels or
Yeah.
tents a million miles from nowhere.
Yeah.
It's a good crew of people.
Man. What was it that like why archaeology, I guess? Was there anything about it that like attracted you at first?
Well, I'd always been interested in history ever since I was a kid, and I don't know. I have no idea what actually spurred that on, uh, but probably, I don't know because it predated dinosaurs, maybe. Anyway, every kid's fascinated with dinosaurs. I was fascinated with dinosaurs, and I just kept
Yeah,
running with it, as long as I could. Except I moved away from dinosaurs and went to archaeology,
sure.
and because I can remember, so I think it was 1978, 78, 79. Anwar Sadat was the leader of Egypt, right? And this kid, I remember reading the newspaper because I was always an avid news hound too. Ever since I was a kid, I was an avid news hound. I'm like 13 or 14, and I would pick up the newspaper my dad would leave at the table, and I would read it at night and stuff like that. Avid news hound.
Man.
We always had like Newsweek and Time and all these things laying around the house or whatever. So I was always reading the news, and then I read this article where Anwar Sadat had awarded this kid who was only like 15 or 16 years old this trip to Egypt to visit the pyramids and Temple Thebes, I think, was in that trip and everything like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
boy, that's the life right there. That's it right there. Some leader of a country's like, oh, come see our stuff, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, then Anwar Sadat got assassinated in 79, I think it was. Anyway, sort of put a damper on that. But that followed me my whole career too. Because I was like,
Yeah.
so in college in the 1980s, when I first started college, 83, my goal was to go to the Middle East because I was still enraptured by this kid's story. And that's where, I think that was the story that like spurred me to start doing research in the Middle East and, like
Mm.
I think it was the earliest kingdoms in Sumer and stuff like that. But what I wanted to do was actually go to Iraq and do archaeology in Iraq because that seemed like the place, because there's so much history like right in that Fertile Crescent. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
so my entire archaeology thing, like in college from 83 to like 86, was like, I've got to get to Iraq, the Middle East somewhere and do some archaeology. So I would have been happy anywhere, Saudi Arabia, anywhere like that would have made me happy.
Yeah.
So I applied for a summer internship through the University of Edinburgh, I think it was, in Iraq, right? And where was it? I can't remember the name of the place, but it was a specific place. I got accepted, but there were requirements, right? I had to cut my hair because I had like long, shaggy hair and just,
Mm.
that you're a typical worthless college bum, just hanging out doing the thing. And but they wrote back said you're gonna have to cut your hair. You're gonna have to do here things like some things, customs that you're gonna have to do locally just to be aware of before you go. And I'm all excited to go. And that's the summer or that time frame. I think it was March of 86, 87 that Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds. And
Mm.
that's where I was supposed to go work in that region. But anyway, so that whole thing got truncated. And I didn't get to go to the Middle East. I ended up going to South Dakota to work in this place called Mitchell Indian Village. So anyone in South Dakota, they'll know Mitchell Indian Village and the Corn Palace at Mitchell. South, I think it's in Mitchell, South Dakota. There's the Corn Palace.
Corn Palace, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, no, I ended up near the Corn Palace in South Dakota, which is really awesome. If you've never been to the Corn Palace, you've got to go to the Corn Palace. Of course, I've got it mythologized in my head now what it actually was. I think it's just a house surrounded by corn. But
That's awesome.
oh yeah, no,
And it's
I think
called the
it's
Corn
made out of
Palace?
corn husks or something. Like someone could correct me out there. I don't know.
Is it like a historic site of corn harvest or like what's special about it?
It's like a museum with stuff in
Cool.
it.
All right. Sweet.
I can't recall. All I can remember is Corn Palace, such a badass name. I'm like, I've got to go to the Corn Palace. I think it's just a museum on the inside. And I think the exterior has just a lot of corn husks on,
Man,
on it or something like
if
that.
I had a
I can't
kingdom,
recall
I
very
tell you
much.
what.
But that's one of those places you have to go. I think it's in Mitchell, South Dakota. And I worked at Mitchell Indian Village. I did the analysis on some pottery at Mitchell Indian Village outside of South Dakota or outside of Mitchell.
Yeah.
But I was in Sioux Falls. I was based out of Sioux Falls. But I also got to work. That was a good summer because I got to work in the Badlands as well. And that was sort of my first introduction to survey archaeology was out in the Badlands of South Dakota. And I had to carry a pistol with me
Mm.
uh, because the guy we were doing survey on this guy's ranch. He had opened up his ranch to do the surveys on, right? And it had been in his family since the 1800s, sometime in the 1800s. And he just told the archaeologists they can come in to do whatever they want. But he required that everyone who went out on his ranch had to carry a pistol with them because rattlesnakes were so bad. And so if you see a rattlesnake, you better kill it, or whatever. Just make sure you kill the rattlesnakes and be aware of the rattlesnakes because they were so bad.
And you're
Uh,
supposed to kill them with a pistol?
yeah, and I didn't have a pistol, so he lent me his, and it was a big old 44 revolver, which is a huge pistol.
We're going snake hunting, boys.
Yeah,
Like,
I never saw a snake the whole time I was out there. Everyone else I was with, they would see snakes every single day, and I never saw a single snake at all. And
jeez.
the guy said it's because I wasn't paying attention. I was literally not looking for him at all. You're not paying any attention at all to what's on anything moving on the ground or anything like that.
Sure.
Not really, but that was really cool. It's the first time I ate ants too. It
What they
got me.
taste like.
I don't, not really anything, just a little bitty crunchy thing. You just got to get
I'm a
this.
texture person. I don't know if I could do that.
Nah, well, I probably couldn't now. Simply one of the things he showed me too. I'm trying to recall exactly what he did. This rancher was absolutely because he's exactly what you imagine a rancher from the West to be like. He was exactly like that,
I've
right?
got an image in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, he rode a horse, had the cowboy hat. He carried a rifle on the saddle of his horse, and he had the pistol with him all the time. And he chewed tobacco, and
Dude.
he was just like he was that guy, right? And he was the one who actually taught me to ride a horse too. He was the first one to actually show me how to ride a horse and stuff. He
Wow.
was a hoot to hang around and a storehouse of knowledge. That guy knew so much stuff.
Yeah.
And he would even take us around, the archaeologists, the people who were supposed to know what was going on. He's like, no, you're doing it wrong. Here, come
Mm.
look over here. The erosion's going on here. This is what the indication of the erosion here and all this kind of stuff. Here's how you identify like old creek beds. You can look over this, like look at ridge lines, and you look at the type of vegetation and stuff, and he goes, that's what you're looking for, and yada, yada, yada.
I feel like that's the type of person that you'd want to learn from, really.
Yeah, yeah. I learned a lot from him that summer. I learned a whole lot from him. He was hilarious. He was absolutely hilarious.
It's very like wisdom versus intelligence
Yeah, yeah.
in my
Oh, yeah.
head.
He never even graduated from high school, but he knew all this stuff. And his house was more like a cabin than a house. I mean, it wasn't one of these. I mean, it wasn't like an old west cabin, but it was just a little bit better than one of your old west cabins, right? He
Yeah.
had no pretension about anything.
A
Nothing.
homestead.
Yeah, like a homestead. He had no pretension about anything, none of it at all.
Yeah.
Uh, but he did read a lot. He was a vociferous reader. I mean, his one of his rooms in his cabin was just full stacks of books, and he just read everything that he could get a hold of.
That's
But he lived
awesome.
alone too, out in the Badlands, somewhere on the edge of the Badlands.
I'm finding just from like talking with everyone and just like people that I've talked to like in the past, like the best thing you can do for like any creative process or just anything is to read a lot and live a lot.
Yeah, I think yeah, combining those two, uh, and I don't know which one is more valuable at the end of the day. I mean, both are really, really valuable, but I
Yeah.
mean, you can only read so much before you have to sort of visualize it, you know.
Mhm.
So traveling to different places.
And likewise, there's stuff that like you probably shouldn't go out and experience, but like have the empathy to read about and like really think deeply about.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, 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 yeah. There's certain things you don't need to experience. You can just read.
I'll read the cliff notes. It's cool.
Yeah, read the clip notes.
I don't
It's
think I
like,
need to go do that one.
yeah, I know. It's like you can play all these bar fights and everything and games and junk like that.
Yeah.
But being in a bar fight sucks.
Dude, I'm not punching anybody.
No,
Yeah.
no, not anymore. I'm done with it. You get your nose broken one time, and you're like, what? Why am I here? What is going on?
Is that a story you'd care to share?
Oh,
We don't have to.
yeah, I was in a few fights. I mean, the funniest fight that, no, I can't go. No, no, that one was a really violent fight. But
Can't talk about it.
yeah, and it was over something stupid, and it was nearly a one punch fight because he hurt me.
Eesh.
I went down like a box of rocks on that one.
Man, oh man.
And that's where I'm sitting there thinking, okay, why am I here? Was that really that important? You know, I've got a broken nose, I'm bleeding, blood.
Like, this sucks.
I know, I got to work at 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, what am I? Whatever.
This isn't like the games at all.
I know. I'm sure, I know exactly. There's no dew points or anything like that. And I show up to work with like my nose all crooked,
Oh
my eye
God.
black, and everything like that. And then you don't get this option to not work. I mean, the boss said didn't have to if I didn't want to, but I went in and worked. And you're walking 13 miles, you know, that day out in the desert, 100 plus degree heat, and all this, but you do it.
Sure.
And then there was another fight. This was the funniest fight. This is another one of those one punch wonders on me. I was at, I can't remember this. It wasn't Jamie Zimitel. I can't remember his name. Maybe it was Jamie. But he was going on and on about karate and how great karate was and how he could do like blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I'm like, no, you know, I didn't gets into the, you know, the pissing match. And eventually fists are thrown. And the for no reason, because he's a really good friend of mine. And it's not like we were just fighting because, you know, we were really great friends. We remained friends for years afterwards. I don't know what happened to him. But, and I remember too, because I was wearing bell-bottom pants at the time. And
so you're doing, to set the scene, you're doing karate and bell bottoms.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But I didn't try to do karate. He was doing karate.
Right.
I'd done some judo before, but so he tried to kick me, right? And I caught his foot. And I pushed him back with his foot. I said, well, this is gonna be easy. This is gonna be over in no time. And then he tried to kick me again, but this time he kicked me with his left foot, and I caught it again, right? And then he did one of those things that you see in the movie where he actually does the flip in the air with his other foot, and he just slams me in the side of the head.
Oh my fucking God.
And I literally go down like a box of rocks, land on the ground, and I'm like, holy. And I was like, okay, respect.
Man.
That was a hilarious fight.
That is nuts. I went to like a summer camp when I was like, I think I was 11 or 12, and I had just learned how to like stage combat.
Yeah.
And I was telling my friend that like I just learned this, and I had learned how to like knee someone in the head, but for the stage.
Yeah.
And she was like, I know how to do that. And she takes my head and knees me in the head.
Great.
Like, sick. You really nailed it. It's really convincing.
Yeah. I didn't need a demonstration.
Thanks. Thanks anyway.
Let's like, have you ever done the like the sword fighting?
No, but
sword fighting, but like even that fake HEMA stuff, or not the HEMA, but
like fencing.
Yeah, like at conventions or something like that. Even with those people.
LARPing, stuff like that.
Yeah, LARPing, like people who know.
I've always wanted to. Never tried it.
Okay, so you should try it one time because it's really, really illuminating. The difference between someone who's been trained, like how to use a sword, versus someone who just picks up a sword and said, "I'm going to fight you."
The footwork alone, it's like math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, the people who are trained to use it. I mean, he was just like, "You're dead. Tap. You're dead. Tap. You're dead." And I never even got to like the sweat. He wasn't even breaking a sweat, and I thought I was about to have a heart attack.
Like, dude, chill.
I know.
Go easy on me.
There, chink, 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 chink. But I guess that's the same with boxers too. You know, someone who's been trained in it. You know,
Hmm.
even a little bit, has a way big advantage over
Yeah. It's like
anyone who doesn't.
I think of it almost like it's like a dance a little bit. And
Yeah.
if you know the steps, then you know what to do and how to like improvise and flourish and like do all the fancy like cool head kicky stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you watch the footwork on those boxers and the MMA fighters and stuff like that. Uh, the footwork is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Who's I don't because I don't follow boxing. Who's the Muhammad Ali? When you
Mm.
watch his old like
God.
foot
Yeah.
shred. But I don't really follow boxing that much. I've never been a really big sports person other than soccer.
Me
Really want to.
neither.
Yeah.
I watched and cared about my very first football game like earlier this year.
Oh really? Oh, it was this year. First time.
It is March right now.
Right.
But yeah,
Who
I feel
was
like
it?
uh,
NFL game or
it
college?
was oh geez, this shows what I know. It was the Lions
Mm-hmm.
and one of the teams that went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I don't even know who went to the Super Bowl.
Me
Lions
neither.
Chiefs, I think. Maybe I don't know.
I
Maybe.
think the Chiefs, that sounds familiar,
Yeah.
but
Chiefs. It wasn't the Vikings. I know that. They never get to go. Or
neither
they
do
never
the
win.
Lions apparently.
Oh yeah, I guess not. Yeah. But I don't know. I just never followed football that much,
Yeah.
other than to be obnoxious. Because there was,
Do tell.
yeah, there was this kid in I can't remember what grade it was. Anyway, he loved the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
And he would go on and on and on. You know, we sat on the bus near each other and he'd go on and on and on about the Dallas Cowboys. And that's one of the few times I think they had this thing against Pittsburgh, the Steelers, Pittsburgh
Mm.
Steelers at the time. So I became a de facto Pittsburgh fan.
Nice. I
Just
love that.
yeah, just
Like
so I can be obnoxious right back.
petty alliances
Yes,
are my favorite.
that's exactly what it was. So petty. just just because someone on the bus, on the school bus, was being obnoxious about it, you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, how else do you, because like I don't know, why does anyone care about stuff? I mean, I just don't get it, of course, but like
yeah.
I don't know if they've got like people on these teams that they care about or like
I don't know what drives people, because it's never been my thing. Nothing against it. I mean, I don't.
it's super
It's
cool.
just
I get why
yeah,
people care about it once they do. I just don't know how you start.
yeah. How you brought into it, sort of
Yeah.
like what's the gateway drug,
Yeah. One
right?
one thing that I've never really thought about at all until like our group started talking about it was like fantasy
Hmm.
sports as like a fantasy culture thing
Yeah,
because sports are huge.
yeah.
We implemented like frog racing into our
Oh really?
setting as an extra
Oh
like
really?
is that something that you've ever like done stuff with in your world building, like putting in sports?
I do have some sports in my world building, nothing like frog racing. I've never actually considered that considered that before, but sports do in certain areas. Sports do play because I know that culturally, sports play a very, very important role throughout human history and in every
Yeah.
culture throughout time, right? And so I have games and in certain areas sports, but I've never really much. I don't think that's weird. Yeah, no. I mean, it's never like a whole lot of details, but it's like, you know, there's a yearly racing event, there's horse racing and archery and stuff like that. I've
Mm.
actually used the archery thing as just like in the Robin Hood stories, the
Yeah.
archery thing as a gateway into an adventure and stuff like that.
Right.
Uh,
That's such a good hook, honestly.
oh, yeah, no, it is. And I think several sports could be done like that. But thinking about it, I might just put a little bit more attention onto some sports stuff. Because think about it too, like the Olympics,
Hmm.
right? which stretched back, what, 3,000 years? The Olympics have been going on 2,500 years. The Olympics has been going on. And I just heard the other day that I think it was Alexander or Alexander's son had to petition to participate in the Greek Olympics because he wasn't considered Greek.
Mm.
He had to prove that he was Greek through some relationship or something like that. And you're talking about, Alexander or
Yeah.
his son or something, or a nephew, I mean, or his father or something. I don't know, it's someone like that. Someone associated with Alexander had to prove that he was Greek. And I was like, how much more Greek can you get?
Yeah.
Which devolved into, as I read further, it was this huge discussion about how did you identify Greeks and, Macedonians, how did Macedonians identify
Oh, your
themselves?
camera just fell.
Uh,
Sorry.
how Macedonians like identify themselves and how you can stretch that back in history and yada 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 yada.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Greeks saw it a little bit differently. The Greeks then, or at least the Athenians did, saw it a little bit differently than uh,
Excuse me.
many people do today. But I don't know. It's an interesting. I don't know. It's one of those interesting things. Just one of those little side notes to history.
Yeah.
Prove that he was Greek to get into the Olympics. I can't remember who it was.
You don't imagine like historical figures like doing paperwork. But
I
really, it's always been the same.
It's always been the same. Yes, it has always been the same. I think as soon as anyone learned to keep records,
Yeah.
that it's just been that way, Because what do they have? Letters of credit stretching back 3,000 years, maybe more, I think. And these letters, that as I recall, and it's been a long time since I've read about this. So these little clay balls uh, contained, what's it? Or no, maybe it was these um, ceramic jars that contained clay balls, and the clay balls had like how much debt you owed, to X and X, or they were written down on clay tablets. You owed X and X, or you've borrowed X from somebody, and you can use this credit, over here in India. You
Mm.
may have borrowed it from someone in Baghdad, but you can use this credit in India with a merchant in India. And so these are lines of credit that like
Wow.
stretching back thousands and thousands of years. And so there are actuaries and there are, people with insurance and all that. It just goes back forever. The same exact thing. And you think of like, Julius Caesar, he just walked around conquering stuff like that. Can you
Yeah.
imagine how much paperwork Julius Caesar had to do? Like
Probably
every
an exhausting amount.
exhausting amount, just sitting there signing. And this was cool too. I didn't realize this. I read about this the other day. So the Roman legionnaires had dog tags. Okay,
Did
not
they?
yeah, not all of them, but if you were part of the Roman Legion, the core part of the Roman Legion, ideally you would receive a dog tag, and the dog tag was actually breakable, or wherever you send a part off. But when a legionnaire died, it was one of the jobs of the there was a whole group of scribes to write letters to the family members telling them that their relative had died in combat or something like that.
Rough
And they
job.
they would collect the names and stuff like that.
Wow.
There's also a group of people that would follow around the battlefields to collect equipment and repair equipment, and that extended into the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
uh, where there was whole groups of people, guilds formed around pillaging battlefields that were
Guilds.
guilds that would like work together to like go to these battlefields, after a battle and pick up all of the arms and weapons that were left laying around. And then they would bring them back and either
Wow.
repair them or sell them in this secondary market, huge secondary market of weapons and armor throughout the Middle Ages.
Man, there's an adventure. Like your party is one of these like guilds and you go and like get
Yeah,
stuff from battlefields and bring it back and
yeah. Can you imagine? That's a great adventure.
that'd be
The
awesome.
Yeah, and it could be even like it could start. So that could be like their whole stick.
Yeah, that's the
Go to
campaign. Like
Yeah,
you go out, you go to these places. Maybe there are still threats lurking there, but you have to go and
exactly.
get stuff.
Yeah, there's threats still lurking in some of them, right?
Yeah.
And then there'd be like, okay, Then you hear about these ancient battles.
Yeah.
Okay, this battle occurred here between these two great armies, and there's the story that this sword was dropped on this battlefield. Let's go find that battle, or that sword, or axe, or something like that, or slippers. There's these famous slippers were dropped on the battlefield.
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
Yeah,
That'd
right.
be fucking
And you got
awesome.
yeah, no, and then the threats looming on the side of the battlefield. You got the wights, the undead, ghouls, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be an interesting campaign thing altogether. And
Birds that are interested. I don't
oh
know the
yeah,
names of any birds that are monsters, but
uh,
off the
then you have
top.
to get it back and selling it too. So and can you imagine? So this group starting out, let's say they do that.
Mm.
I'm already thinking of these like adventure hooks.
Yeah.
So they find all this cool stuff and like bring it back. They're selling it on the secondary market. But then they find out, oh wait, someone's like, this sword belongs to X and X family. This is you. You've crossed the line here.
Oh shit. And then they're being like hunted.
Yes, and
There's a
then
mark on them now.
there's a mark on them. Yeah. Yeah, no, you could take it anyway. That would be a really, really good adventure. That would be a fascinating adventure.
Yeah.
Hunters of the Dead.
I want to
Okay.
play it.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. Wow.
We can have Jeremy write it.
Yeah. Jeremy, are you busy? Here's another adventure idea. We just generate the ideas. We don't do anything with them. But yeah, no, that would
Land.
be an awesome adventure. That would be an awesome campaign.
Yeah. I've had this theory that I think has been like the more that I get to talk with you specifically, the more that I'm convinced this is true. Like people that are curious about our world and the history of our world and like what's currently going on, just the world that you're in, are
Mhm.
more apt to be like fantasy writers and story builders and world builders.
Probably, yeah. Because I think what happens is, so one, you have to be curious, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people aren't, and that's fine. I'm nothing against it. I mean,
It's
I
easy
want
to like go through life just kind of worried about like what you're worried about and have your head down and
right, yeah, and I mean, that's a lot of life.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't fault anyone for that. I'm that way more than
Yeah,
I'd
no,
like
you
to
have,
be.
yeah, and that's how you. I mean, that's how you like that's how you have to get through the day, right? Or
Yeah.
the year, decades, and but if you're like, I think I don't know, it maybe sound wrong, but the more curious one is about other things, it actually starts to build,
Hmm.
right? So all you have to do is break that first barrier of interest, and then like start reading about something. So I'm really interested in this, and it goes further and further and further. And there's literally no end to that hole.
Yeah.
Okay, it cannot. You can never finish. It's like an endless tunnel, right? With a
Yeah.
billion different branches. There's just no end to it. You can't accumulate it all, and you can read forever and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then it becomes idea generators too, because and especially if you just branch, if you just pick, and just a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there,
Hmm.
and then because your brain's trying to make sense of it all, and trying to put it together, then you start coming up with your own ideas, and all you have to do is like, I want to generate something, and you have all that information to draw from, right?
Right.
Your
Right.
brain's like putting it all together into a actually think though as well that once you start to accumulate that type of knowledge or that type of information, I should say, rather, uh, your brain just necessarily wants to do something with it, right? It doesn't like to just sit on stuff or it'll forget it.
Hmm.
And I think so you're going to move in certain directions once you start accumulating vast stores of information. It's just like, say for so when I started college, there were two options ahead of me that I wanted, right? That I was looking at:
Hmm.
stockbroker or archaeology.
It is very difficult to imagine Davis Chenault, the stockbroker.
Yeah, but I was just like I said, I was a news hound, so I always read about the
Yeah.
stocks and all this kind of stuff like this and the economy in general. I was like, I want to be a stockbroker. This sounds really exciting. You have buying and selling, and all these margin calls, it's just crazy,
Yeah.
and you start accumulating all this like information, and you have nothing to do with it, right? Except it just sits in your head, but your brain
Mm.
automatically wants to do this. So I had
Yeah.
all this information. I want to do something with it. Boom! I want to be either a stockbroker or an archaeologist. The two like pinpoint things uh, that I've worked with, and they
Sure.
are had accumulated enough information to be problematic. Like not doing anything, but it's just like there's all this stupid information in my head. Most of it's incorrect or whatever, but whatever.
Right.
Uh, but then I took my the first year I took several business courses, and I was like, not gonna do this.
It's like, yeah, no.
No, this is not for me at all. Not for me. It wasn't the stocks, it's everything associated with it, that whole atmosphere. And I was like, nope, I can't do this. I admire those people, and
Yeah.
I sort of envy them sometimes. As like it
Oh
would
yeah.
have been an awesome life to have been a stockbroker and succeed, not fail, but be a stockbroker your whole
Right.
life and be really, really good at like Warren Buffett. You got to like
Yeah.
awesome to be, that smart.
Sure.
Uh, and be able to have fun because it would be fun too. I mean, you get that stress and that adrenaline from trading and
Hmm.
looking at all that stuff. It's all there, but I just couldn't deal with the whole atmosphere that would have gone with it. So
Yeah. Like that kind of stands out to me as the biggest thing too. Just the culture around it and
yeah,
like the thing itself sounds really interesting, but it
yeah,
all comes down to the people for me, I think.
yeah. I've met too many people in those business classes and there were some exceptional outliers whom were really, 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 really good people, but
Hmm.
for the most part, it was not the kind of people that I wanted to be around.
Sure.
Uh, but even from the simplest part of it, the very simplest part of it is the dress code that basically you have to follow. And I'm like, nope, not doing the khakis and the loafers, and
No
not doing all
thanks.
that kind of. That's not for me. And then you get into the whole archaeology thing. It's like no one gave two shits about anything.
Yeah.
No, no one cares. Do your thing. Do your thing. Just whatever. And I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So
Yeah.
it was a lot more relaxing in that respect. But
I think it was maybe last week or the week before where we had like just a meeting for like you and Steve and everyone in like the social media kind of
oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And you showed up with duct tape around your fingers.
Oh yeah. I caught the bob wire.
It's like no one cares what you wear.
Yeah,
It's
no one cares.
awesome.
It doesn't really matter, and I've never really cared. It just never crosses my mind. I don't look at
Yeah.
someone and what they're wearing. I guess I
Yeah.
mean, it is important socially. I know that what you wear and how you carry yourself. I mean, it's the very first impression, and those first impressions go a long way. And it's the
Yeah.
reason people wear what they wear and dress nicely and take a shower and shave and do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Uh, but I've never. It's like the last thing that I see, basically, almost.
I don't like to care about it when it comes to other people. Like I've got my own thoughts about how I, want to dress and stuff like that, but in retail, the thing that I was always told to do was look at people's shoes and like assess
Mhm.
their wealth based on their shoes.
Oh, right. Yes, because yes, no, there are indicators, signs and signals, indicators
And it's
of
like, man,
wealth.
I do not care. I don't want to
Yeah,
think about it.
I know. But now you've got this thing in your head now that you
Yeah.
can look at someone's shoes and that's an automatically sign and signifier to you how wealthy they are, what their income bracket potentially,
In theory, yeah.
in
And
theory.
I hate it. I want to turn it off.
Yeah. But you know what? The crazy thing, you may be able to turn it off eventually, but the crazy thing is those little like details will stick with you your whole life. You'll never be able to unsee what you've seen.
Right, right. There's just little lessons that are probably not super like important or profound,
Yeah.
but for some reason, like those are the things that stick with you.
Oh yeah, no, there's yeah,
Do
it's
you have
crazy.
any like nuggets like that that have kind of chased you, valuable or not?
Like observational things like that
I
with regard.
guess, or just like anything that comes to mind as like the stuff that kind of like guides you in some way.
No, mine is I've actually so I've never been like what I lack is this thing called until I turn it on, and I have to turn it on for you know for it to actually work. It's like a conscious effort to turn it on. Is situational awareness, right?
Mm,
I generally do not pay attention to my environment around me. Okay,
sure.
which can lead to, and has led to, a whole host of problems. Okay, because there are things that I should pay attention to that I don't. However, there are instinctively things that I have done or and still do, and I later became aware that I do them. Uh, like one of the things that I do when I'm in a big city, uh, I think Boston was where I learned my lesson. Yeah, never walk next to buildings. Always walk on the outside of the sidewalk when I'm alone, right? So that I'm never next to an alley, a doorway, or something like. There's always space between me and that
Wow.
alley and that doorway. Okay, always a space.
I feel cheated. I've never been told that one.
Yeah, that's what I don't know if it's accurate, but it gives me space,
Yeah,
right? Just in case something goes wrong,
right.
and it's worked because I didn't do that at one time. It didn't work, but the little extra space works. So
You got
it
yanked into an alley one time?
huh?
You got like yanked into an alley one time?
Yeah, I got beat up in an alley.
I'm sorry to hear it.
That was in Boston too. In this area called, I had several experiences in this area. I think it was called the combat zone at the point. At that point,
I mean, aptly named, I guess.
yeah, it was a really dangerous area, and I had no idea. I mean, I was new to. I would just go to Boston on the weekends and go to these comedy clubs, and there was one comedy club. I think they're all really close to each other in this one little area. It was adjacent to or nearby what was referred to as the combat zone at that point. And it's late at night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm half drunk, and I'm like, I'm just going to wander around Boston, which is how stupid is that at 2 or 3 in the morning?
I mean, it's been pounded into my head since I could understand words
Yeah,
not to do that, but
yeah, no,
not everyone.
I had to learn that lesson myself. but generally speaking, I don't have that situational awareness. I don't pay like the rattlesnake thing. I didn't see the rattlesnakes. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the rattlesnakes weren't there. It's just
right.
I wasn't looking for the rattlesnakes, or I wasn't aware that the rattlesnakes were there. I was hiking one time. This is in the Yellowstone, and again, one of those situations. I'm not paying attention really to anything. I'm in my own head, enjoying being outside, got my backpack on, walking through the woods, I'm off trail, and I almost bump into a buffalo, right? And that's the I yeah. I mean, it's from like maybe 3 feet away from me because I come around
Dude.
this tight burr of trees and underbrush into this opening, and this buffalo is standing right there, and I have this, my backpack on, and I'm staring at the buffalo, and they're huge. I had because I'd never been up close to a buffalo before, not in the
Jeez.
wild, and they're just magnificently large. And all I'm sitting there is thinking is, wow, he could kill me if he just moves forward.
It's all it takes.
I know that's all it takes. So I
God.
try to slowly back away and just walk the other direction. Nothing ever happened of it. But see, that's I'm not paying attention a lot of times to my surroundings.
Sure.
Uh, And but what I do have is a fairly decent instinct for people,
Mm,
right? I get so there's something working somewhere in the back of your head that's always gauging, just like you'll never forget the shoe thing, right?
yeah.
Even if you bury it somewhere, probably somewhere in the back of your head, when you look at shoes, your brain will start cataloging that information somewhere somehow,
Yeah.
and that becomes your instinct, your intuition. That's where it's going to build up,
And
right?
I hate for that to be spent on something so like
I
judgmental and
know.
stupid. But
Yeah, I know. I know, but it'll be there.
yeah.
Uh, and it's just one of those skills that accumulates over time. But you get these instincts and intuitions, and I have a really good intuition about people. I don't know what it is about their body language or something like that, and it's
Yeah.
usually body language that'll set it off. I was like, words, not so much. Maybe there are a few words that'll set things off, but basically it's body language, how they move their body, and pretty, I can gauge really, really well whether someone's dishonest. Not if they're lying necessarily, but
Mm,
whether they're dishonest or right. I mean, everyone lies every once in a while. I get
sure.
that. Don't really care. The
But you can like sniff out a habitual liar.
A habitual liar, someone
Yeah.
who's being deceptive or something like that. I'm pretty good. I'm really, really good at that. So
Hmm.
much so, even after my divorce, my ex-wife asked me to like meet people, uh, like in business and stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah.
to let her know whether or not
That's awesome.
they could be trusted. I remember one case, I was like, dude, no way, you can't trust. No way, that guy's just he is.
Has there ever been a time where it was like you made an observation that someone was maybe a little sketchy and like it turned out to be true?
uh,
I'm sure a lot of those situations probably not because like you probably wouldn't stick around.
yeah,
But
no, I tend to cut. I have a tendency in those situations, and I'm not really. You want to I can't think of where I was wrong, uh, because if I get those vibes, those bad vibes off of someone, I tend to cut them off
yeah, yeah,
quickly. I'm not going to deal with it. And at this point in my life, I'm literally not going to deal with it all. I mean, I don't have that time or patience at this
yeah.
point.
Life's too short.
Life's too short, and literally everyone should start that life's too short at about 13 years old. Your life is way too short by the
Yeah,
time you're 13. Get over it. Cut that bullshit out of your life.
yeah,
But yeah, I've met a few people who turned out to be really, really sketchy. I,
sure.
at first Gen Con, this guy turned out. I thought he was super, super sketchy,
Yeah.
uh, and it almost turned into a fight. The But it turned out to be he did some Kickstarters that he never fulfilled, and he fled with the money, left the country. So I don't know. I can't remember what he did. It was some crazy crap that
Jeez.
he did. Uh, there were several of those people like that. But over my life, yeah, and you can tell, like, in a bar, you know, it comes
Hmm.
on pretty quickly.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and that's one of those times where you really have to trust your gut. If your
Oh
gut says
yeah.
anything, boom, run with your gut.
Yeah. Always.
Always run with your gut.
Especially in bars.
Yeah, especially in bars. There's no room for maneuver there. Don't. Yeah. I just don't trust anyone who goes to bars. Even though I went to bars
Yeah.
all the time, I was like bar hop pretty much the vast majority of my 20s, 30s, and 40s. And but I'm like, yeah, bar hop too much. I don't trust them. I know what they're like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
But
mean, there's no greater like source than being like, no, I was there and I know what that's about.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, the whole bar thing, which
Yeah.
is fine with me. I can't do it anymore. I don't think. I wonder. I can't remember the last time I was actually in a bar. It's been a long time.
Gary Con.
Gary Con, I was in that, yeah, that down there. But
Yeah.
that's with you guys, and then I know because I know all of you, so it's that's good.
Yeah.
Uh, but just randomly walking into a bar with a lot of strangers, well, I wouldn't do it. I mean, there's a lot of places I wouldn't even consider going into the bars. I'd be
Yeah.
like, no, those people aren't for me.
I live
But
really close to a bunch of bars, like a whole main strip of just like bars and music venues. And what I'll do a lot of the time with Nick and my dog is we'll walk just like on the street outside.
yeah,
It's so
oh right,
interesting.
oh yeah, no, and you can people watch and
It's the best.
oh yeah, no, just sitting down and watching the people. Yeah, no, especially if you're sober.
Yeah. God, when we do that, we don't like yeah, we just go sober and just like
Yeah,
enjoy from like the periphery and the stuff
yeah.
that you see is just crazy. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, no, it can be really, really insane. Yeah, yeah. That's funny. One of those observational things. Okay, so this is one of those weird bar stories.
Yeah.
So, uh, I stop in this bar in it's in Colorado, in between Montrose and Ouray, right? I can't remember the bar, Whitefish Tavern or something. I can't remember the name of the bar. Anyway, so and this is back in the very early '90s, and it's a fairly rough bar. It has a lot of locals in it and stuff like that. So there's this guy, but I was unaware of this. Again, I'm between sites and between jobs, and just goofing off, whatever. Stop, get a drink, and in the afternoon, it's the afternoon thing. It's all safe. Everything's good, right?
Sure.
I'm sitting at the bar, talking to the bartender, blah blah blah, and this guy comes in and starts jabbering at me, and and then starts not very well veiled threats, you know, about taking me outside and beating the shit out of me and stuff like that. I'm like, what the what? Yeah, and the bartender came over and he told me, he said, look, if the guy did his troubles, just let me know. We'll try to put an end to it, but be aware really he's not a really good person, right? And I've gotten all these really, I mean, I was trying not to engage with them and stuff like that, but you can't back down. You can't walk away. That's an invitation. I mean, that's a direct invitation to you getting hurt, right?
Is it?
Yeah, backing down. Yeah, in that type of situation, at least in my experience,
Sure.
in that type of situation, you're asking for trouble by backing down, right?
Sure.
But you're not. But I'm not threatening or saying anything or like that. It's not like a confrontational thing. I'm just talking, and this guy keeps going on about soft people from out east and city people and just like how worthless they are and government how worthless they are. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, yeah, this is not going anywhere, like. And then he goes on about the feds, people who work for the feds. Well, I'm an
Yeah.
archaeologist. Essentially, I'm federally employed. It's all federal laws that govern what
Yeah.
I do, right? And I'm like, so I don't mention what I do. I'm really not going to mention what I do. But anyway, he's really itching to get into a fight. Really, really itching to get into a fight. And at one point, he gets up and leaves, go talk to a few friends. And you can tell the guy's itching to get in a fight. I'm looking for a way that I can walk out
Yeah.
without him having follow me, and do it out in the parking
Yeah.
lot. Because I didn't want to fight. This is after the point where it's like I'm done. Two, this guy was obviously tough as nails. I mean, he was obviously tough as nails.
Sure.
And so the bartender came up to me and said, "You probably want to leave now. Uh, this guy just got out of prison. He had shot a cop like with a crossbow
With a
several
cross.
years before, and is very notorious in the community, for looking for outsiders, starting fights,
How
and
is he
so
not banned from this place, first of all? Second of all, a cop with a crossbow?
yeah. Apparently, this guy, I think his name was, I can't remember what his nickname was, because eventually, this is what got me out of the fight, right? This is what cleared me in the whole thing. And
Yeah.
we actually ended up talking the rest of the night. Now, nervously, because I was still wanted to get out of there. But
Yeah.
after, this is what cleared me. So I had been hiking for days, right? And I was just literally covered in dirt. And, I hadn't bathed, nothing like that. I hadn't even been to a hotel.
Yeah.
And I was just getting like a couple afternoon beers. And anyway, so my hands were all cut up, you know, calloused and, stuff like that. And there was just metric tons of dirt under my fingernails. I mean, I was just like black dirty.
Yeah.
And eventually that is essentially what got me out of this fight, because he grabbed my hand one time and he looked at my hand. He just like grabbed it and looked at my hand and said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I work outside, doing, odd jobs."
Not for the government.
Yeah, not for the government, this type of stuff. But eventually, so this is the point. He goes, "Okay, well, and he put my hand back, and put my hand down. And he's like, "Okay, well, this is, whatever." I can't remember exactly what he said, but he calmed down right afterwards, because he had assumed that I was like one of the wandering like ranch hands or cattle hands or something like that.
Yeah.
Just wandering through doing random jobs here, there, and elsewhere. Which wasn't really far from the truth. I mean, mostly it was archaeology, but I'd pick up random jobs. If I needed extra money, I'd pick up a random job.
Yeah.
They're always outside. Street cleaning, or not street cleaning. What did I do? In Arizona, I ran out of money one time. Needed a job real quick. I got on a street crew and just shoveled all day. I also got these seismic lines one time. Those little things you put in the ground to explode for those. But anyway, so that got me out of thinking. We ended up talking. The guy's name was Wolf. I think his nickname was Wolf. And anyway, we ended up talking late into the afternoon, very late into the afternoon, before I excused myself and left. But I do recall about that time I'd left, he had already zeroed in on someone else who had come into the bar. This group of kids had come into this bar. It's like 3 guys
Oh dear.
and 3 girls, and they're all young. They're like in their very, very early 20s. And he started making snide comments about them. And
Jeez.
then he said something. I was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here
Yeah.
before everything goes south.
Better to just.
Yeah. So as I was finishing off my beer, the bartender actually Wolf went over and said something to this group of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Whatever. But the bartender, after Wolf left, he said something. Everyone got sort of agitated and angry. The bartender went over and told those people to leave. He said, "You need to leave this bar right now."
The kids.
Yeah, the kids. So get out. Go.
Yeah.
Just get out. And they left. And that's shortly after that. I left. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, bars can be dangerous. They can be really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that is nuts.
Yeah. And out west, there's people that they love to fight. Oh, there was this bar. That's like, okay, anyone they will know this bar, the Deer Lick in Montana. So you go to this place, it's way out in the middle of Montana, nowhere. It's got to be near the wilderness area. It's got to be near the Bob Marsh Wilderness area, as I recall. I can't remember all the roads and everything. Anyway, I'd been camping out in the Bob Marsh Wilderness, and then I got my truck stuck. Had to walk like 10 miles to this road, and I sat on the side of this road until somebody came by. I must have waited there 8 hours. Or someone came by. I was like, "Hey, can you help me get my truck?" He drove down, helped me get my truck out of this nightmare situation. And then we went to a bar afterwards called the Deer Lick. And okay, no one is supposed to go to the Deer Lick except people who know people, right? I mean, it's one of those local bars. You're not supposed to go there.
Yeah.
From what I recall, anyway, the stories, it didn't turn into a bad experience. But you walk in, and I'm trying to get it straight. Okay, so there's the bar's right in front of you, and the thing over the bar, I think it's the butt of a female deer, and it's only a few feet, and over the top is the deer, right, the male deer with his tongue out. And it's
my God. Very cool.
I know. I was like, what am I walking into?
That's a place where you walk in and you know immediately what it's about.
Yeah. No. I mean, the people are all good. There were actually some
That's really funny.
There was a guy who he really tried to convince me to do this. He would take mule trains out into the Bob Marsh Wilderness and a few other places. He was actually a gold panner. That's what he did. That was his life, going out into the wilderness areas and looking for gold. I'm sure he did something else besides that, but he really wanted me to go with him one time out to this wilderness. And I was like, I don't know. I like camping alone.
I work alone.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, there's a few other crazy bars. Yeah. Anyway.
That's a wild. I think we are out of time for now. I want to keep going, but we got to cut it here. But thank you so much.
No, the bar stories. Yeah, I could go on about. Like I said, I spent a lot of time.
I want a book. of
Yeah,
like bar stories.
yeah, just go from bar to bar to bar across the country. I didn't even Kent was even on the road time. And these were specific types of bars. And he called me one time, and this is before we had cell phones. It was on a
Yeah.
landline. He called me on the phone, and he was going through uh, Phoenix.
Hmm.
I think it was Phoenix, Arizona, and I was somewhere. I don't know where I was. It was somewhere, but he could reach me on the phone. And he said, "Hey, do you know any places to go in Phoenix?" And I'm like, "Where are you in Phoenix?" And he goes, "I'm on the interstate going through just before the cross up to Santa Fe." And I was like, "Okay, take the exit to Santa Fe, go go up three more exits, take a right, go down X Road, take a left and another left." And you're gonna find the best bar. We had them mapped out
Dude.
in our head. Kent, and I would call Kent too. Kent turned me on to a few really good bars, and he had them mapped out in his head. He's like, "All right, you need to do this. Go here, go here, go here, go here, and then you'll be at this cool bar." And I was like, "Yep, okay, that's a cool bar."
That's, I mean, like, this is very Gen Z of me
Mhm.
because, of course, people found their way and got around and like figured it out. That's hard to imagine being able to like hear directions and translate them to like, oh, yes, I'll just apply that really quick and arrive at the
Oh,
place where I need to be on purpose.
it's funny you mentioned that. The because your generation is the first generation to almost be exclusively raised without maps.
I've
Right?
never used like a road map.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we had
Yeah.
GPS from the time when I was like 14 and learning to drive, and that
Yeah,
was
I think
it.
so. Yeah, I think your generation is the first one that's been exclusively raised on that. And I was raised on maps
Yeah,
and directions from people,
right.
you know. So you'd learn really, really quick, and everyone has their own way of doling out directions, you know. Some people I don't use street names, right? I'm
Sure.
really bad with street names. I can't remember them for some reason, but I'm really good with things. Like I can
Yeah,
remember there's an oak tree with like a twisted limb, and you take a right after that oak tree, right? Or there's a
sure,
big yellow sign. I don't know what's on the sign, but there's a stoplight, two stoplights down from that big yellow sign, take a right or whatever.
sure.
Uh, I could remember those types of things, but I could never really remember street names or street numbers or something like that.
Yeah.
Even the maps, dude, you got to do it one time. You got to go on a road trip. You and Nick should go on a road trip with just a map. Turn your phones off and just use a
You
map.
know, maybe we'll do that one weekend. We
Yeah,
might
try
dead
to
ass
get
do that.
pictures.
See where we end
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Just see what happens. And then, but even trying to use those old maps too, because you get like an old map of New Orleans and you're trying to find a street. Like you show up in New Orleans. It's like 1984. I show up in New Orleans for the first time, and I have a street map of New Orleans. Okay, there's 1,000 streets, but on the back
Yeah,
of the map is a reference. You can see like there's a reference material, so you can go, and you're sitting there like, oh, where I can turn right, turn left, turn right, and you don't have anything telling you when to turn. So you got to memorize.
it's
I
like,
got
oh
to go down
shit.
3 streets, 3 exits, or three straight, 3 blocks, and then take a right, 2 blocks, take a left, 3 blocks, take a right, 3 blocks, take a left, whatever, and you just got
Yeah.
to memorize that. But I could never memorize it all together. So what I do is take my maps and I'd rip them up into little small sections
I
and put them
mean,
on my dashboard. I know.
there you go.
So there'd be piles of like map parts every time in my car because they're just like, and they were huge too. You should
That's
try that.
awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be a fun adventure. I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
Just put on the map and just like, okay, where on the map do I want to go and how am I going to get there?
Dead ass, we might do that. I might bring that up to him right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Y'all should do that.